We also want to let you know that this will be covered via social media, so if you feel like tweeting, please do so using the hashtag J4TM. J4T is in Tom, M is in Mary. So, with that, let's begin. Let me ask you a question. What do you see when you see me? Do you see a father, a husband, a friend, or a colleague? Do you see yourself in me, or do you see a threat? The verdict in the George Zimmerman case provides us an opportunity to step back and reflect on what happened that night, or rather provides us an opportunity to understand why what happened that day even came to pass. When George Zimmerman saw Trayvon Martin, February 26th of 2012, he saw a threat, not an average teenager walking down the street. Zimmerman had a reaction. Had Trayvon Martin been female, or perhaps had he been white, maybe had he been blonde-haired, blue-eyed, making the same trek with his Skittles and iced tea, chances are, it's possible Zimmerman may not even give him a second look. The unconscious bias Zimmerman felt that day, in many ways, has infected us all. And you ask how, and in many ways, it's through the virus of the media, of which I'm a part. Tonight, we want to explore the coverage of Trayvon Martin's death and the Zimmerman trial, as well as the media's role in shaping perceptions. What can be done within the media and in the community? We want to know what can be done to alter the existing narrative that frames Black men as predators. I also want to hear your thoughts and feelings, but with an eye towards solutions. Outstanding panel to help put this into perspective for us, and I'm going to introduce them in the order that they sit. To my direct left, we have the president, we have Dory Maynard. We don't have the president. We have the Institute, Dory Maynard. Being named president in January 2001, she directed the History Project. Against the backdrop of the turbulent work that helps journalists more accurately cover communities. She is co-author of Children, which is a compilation of Dory has a long list of accomplishments. She's been a reporter. She's also been key partners in the Chauncey Bailey Project. There was to Dory's direct left, we have Arnold X.C. Perkins. Love that. Served as director of the Alameda County Public Health Department in Oakland from 1990. Leadership and management of the administrative research and epidemiology. Brings a diverse experience and deep commitment to the building and maintaining the spirit of community. You've got a very diverse background that includes positions at the foundation and program office. Matt, please welcome Arnold Perkins. We're going to skip down to young Trayvon. We're hoping to see Malkia shortly. Maybe I'll read her bio real quick just so we will know who she is when she arrives. Malkia Ciro is founder and director of the Center for Media Justice, which was launched in 2008 to strengthen the media activism and communications capacity of grassroots 15 years, Malkia's award-winning work has empowered local social justice leaders and organizations with the skills and strategies they have to navigate the 21st century. And I can say that Malkia's staff has even come to visit us in June when they were concerned. We have Mr. Trayvon Moore, who's down here, 23-year-old, and who is now a mentor at the Mentoring Center. He's from Oakland, born and raised, and he'll tell you a little bit more about his past, but he's here tonight to reflect that oftentimes what you see is not what you get. What you see in this young man now, what his history, what his past might have been, he's now serving to be a mentor with the Mentoring Center, which is helps young black men and others in the parole and criminal justice system move towards a productive role in society. So, Dory, I think we're going to start with you. Please tell us how you feel that this verdict and what the media's role was in this.
Davis was shocked because
thoughts? You go to the back of the, but you go to the front. You go to the back of the restaurant. Go to the back of the Greyhound buses. Just that's my history. Backdrop of what's happened. So this, I was disappointed more than surprised. By the way, Florida probably hung more people. I wasn't surprised. I was shocked. All the inequity that I just talked about. Had some bank robbers. They robbed. None of their pieces were in the paper robbery that they did. The it's also as an African person, I don't see myself. All I read about is myself doing something negative. No one takes time to talk about that outstanding. Or the brother up at Lawrence. Also don't hear about the outstanding work of leadership. I don't hear about that in the paper, but I do hear. Media upsets me in many, many different. I want to see us use the media. I want to see. I want to see, and this is going to. I want to see white folk work in white neighborhoods on race. I can't work in those neighborhoods effectively because I don't go to the same clubs. I'm in the same churches. So somehow it always falls on my shoulder to deal with all experience. And we're all in this. I was reading yesterday in Latino brothers sang the national anthem. They called him some horrendous. He's as much American as anyone's in this room. He happens to. Marquez, they call him, who is this Mexican singing? And this, we ain't got no business having these Mexicans
perpetrated on a Latino boy who sang at the Spurs game. They said all sorts of horrible things about him. So I'm wondering who's American, because to me, America starts way up north and goes down to the tip continent. To me, it's America. And so Mexicans have migrated on their land. This is as if they are strangers, they're immigrants. Like cows migrate all over. So more often is damaging than is one.
Great time. Yes, it is a perfect time.
Apologize for being late. Is way to start my comments. Are subject to narratives the case in fact was not argued on the basis that this young man that creates a dynamic how we are represented in the news. This There are multiple institutions where our religious institutions are propagated. How we reshape culture, mainstream primetime television as a primetime television show, right? And that all of our institutions, all of our organizing groups, all of us
Can you talk a little bit about what I'm going to circle back. I have follow-up questions for each one of you. Yeah, I just want you to give us a little sense of your history, how you became a mentor at the Mentoring Center. But a little sense from you about how, when we talked about this in advance of the Trayvon easily could have been you.
I could have been Trayvon easily just because people look at me, they'd be scared of me as a threat. And I mean, I try not to let that get to my skin because right, as I said today, most people see me as a threat because of what they see on TV. I know I'm kind of going off the topic. I mean, it's basically like, it's not even just the media. I also see that this he say, she say, or he's basically just going off of what everybody believes is what's correct by what one person started. Start off as a rumor, and it just ends up as most people do is more difficult to live with, just because, like, with the person with Oscar Grant, I mean, that was right here in my city, and we deal with, basically. Every day I gotta think of the feeling that not just watching my back of the thugs on the street or anything else like that. Now I gotta worry about the police. They think I'm reaching for something. And it changed from that to Trayvon Martin. I mean, George Zimmerman wasn't even the police. He took the law into his own hands and killed a young boy. You don't know if Trayvon Martin was born to be a doctor or anything. It's embarrassing. Well, not embarrassing. Well, it's embarrassing. Certain people get away with murder, plain and they do or who they are. I don't see neither the Oscar Grant or the Trayvon Martin was neither one a fair case. Neither one, all facts was put on the table, and neither one was. Just because I'm living in this society, I have to fear that for the rest of my life. That I'm not able to be 25. It's kind of hard to live with. 23 now. I'm 24 now.
Well, I want to do a round of follow-up questions each of them. Can you talk about how you feel, or how, I mean, do you see yourself at all portrayed? And if you do, what do you see, and how does it make you feel?
I'm portrayed in media because, I mean, when I was younger, I was one of them boys on the street. I was one of them same ones in the corner or doing anything else. I basically just switched on my life. It's basically just a matter. I don't feel that the media is giving a false statement. They say that one person is going to be a help to his community. Last year, I spent my past year helping with my job and on the streets. I have younger cousins. Difficult just because that all going on. I'm still just seeing other people that I have worked with in the past. They still, maybe they knew me in my past, but they just know what I do. They know how I spend my life nowadays. But they
Arnold, in your work as a issues of violence, punitive approach to a more holistic. When we talked initially, one thing you media, and that you said we can't wait for the media to get.
Media cannot change our perception. We need to work within our community to change that. Other people need to work in their community to change. I don't put everything on the media. Oakland public schools are doing what they're designed to do. So my public schools are designed to probably 99% of their students. Oakland public schools are designed and do it effectively. Have like 7 young Africans graduate from. Have a high number to have over 40% probably higher, drop out. To have people go to state prison, it is designed to do exactly what it's doing. And it's no mistake. When you have a curriculum that does not relate to the young people, that you have teachers that are afraid of schools. So these are things that we could do in our local community. We could support some of these agencies that I talked about, the Middle Center. A lot of our nonprofits are suffering, are struggling, and they make a difference in the community. They are the safety valve from a lot of us getting our butts kicked because they're there. Many of our young people are hurting. Hurt people hurt people. I'm in California Youth Authority every Monday doing critical thinking, working with those young men, trying to help them understand you gotta love yourself. Media cannot make me love myself. I need to hold hands with this sister and this sister. Talk about how we solve our problems. So, some old-fashioned guy, one of them old conservatives. I'm determined that if we spend the time with each other, not being afraid of each other. See, sometimes I'm more afraid of some of my brothers than I am of Zimmerman. I also know that if we kill each other, we don't say anything about it. But you let a white man kill us, and we'll pick it, and we'll do everything possible. And to me, we need to value each other much more than we value someone else. So, yeah. So there's a lot we can do, a lot we must do, and I'm not that worried about the media. I'm more worried about what we need to do within our community. I don't want us to beat this to death without coming up, because we get off on things like this, and we'll have a number of forums, and then they'll die. And our kids out there are dying as we are waiting on the next big thing to happen. We'll come together and we'll get outraged, we'll tear stuff up, and then it dies. And then we go on and on. And I'm interested in the dash. I'm interested in the tablets and the dash.
I had a couple of members of your staff one time. They were very, I thought, the other media outlets.
that wouldn't be a huge problem. So, but that in and of itself wasn't a huge problem.
To change the environment that helps to begin to change. because obviously the real challenge is the cost of the industry, but it's a huge, the crossover point, as they say. I want to get a sense from you.
Sorry, I didn't speak directly into my, in Europe, people pay tax money, and tax money goes. So it's almost impossible to find. But you can't monetize the internet space. It all goes back. I mean, if you really the revenue that you can get that way is pretty corporate conservative, this is a political conservative.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have questions, there's a microphone there. Please, a comment is fine, but I think a question is better. Or a comment and a question are good. But it'd be great if you could direct it to a particular panelist if possible, but you can also direct it to the whole. So feel free to just step right up to the mic. which story, I'd like for you to respond if you could. I mean, you are very familiar with particularly the print media and the environment. Anyway, the companies like McClatchy see themselves moving in a direction like
Here's my concern, my question.
look at that. And I would like to say that Mr. Zimmerman does identify himself as Hispanic.
Happened was how it was set up. They had an all predominantly light-skinned jury.
Let's make one quick point of clarification. Apparently in Florida, if it's not a capital, it would have been a murder one, it would have been 12.
Be that as it may, so I think the more important thing to me is we have organizations. I'd like to see people be at the school board meeting on an ongoing. I'd like to see people support the mentoring center, all of the youth programs. I'd like to see people get involved in civic activities. Those are things that we can specifically do. I'd like to see people write Lonnie Hancock about your concerns about what's happened about gun laws, for example, about proportionate minority confinement and there's a lot we can do. There's no shortage of things we can do. Barbara Lee is a champion. I'd like to see us write to Barbara Lee about some. To me, there's no excuse not to do anything. I think we often say, I don't know what to do. Pick any organization, pick any day of the week, library. There are a lot of things we can do to support our young people. Volunteer to go to some of the schools and talk with the young people about your life experience. So I just want to encourage people to do something, just not.
Saw himself as someone who cares of you. That's what it asks of you. It asks you to trade your identity action. Our schools, our understanding of what civil rights are needs we targeted and stalked this young man. The number of cities in this country that have conceal his weapon because there are weak gun laws that allow you to conceal your weapon, that allow you. Does that mean that we have the right to kill each other? Does that mean that there's a legal justification? There's his right to self-defense, legally. So I think there's a lot we can do of actual political change. Failed us in many ways. They did not represent our interests.
Question that I'm not sure is on really curious about your opinion on the Rolling Stone.
Okay.
But
Well, forums like this are one example. We also have a program that we've developed together address that issue of that Voices had two classes thus far. One in West Oakland where we trained 10 multi-ethnic, multi-gender community who had a relationship with the paper over 9 months, and to be trained and given the digital and storytelling skills so that they even be empowered beyond the length of the program. The last class we just did was in East Oakland, where we trained another 10 residents, multi-ethnic, Oakland, to reframe the narrative of East Oakland is often well, Oakland Voices and East Oakland, they put forth a much having similar concerns with giving stories. The goal there really is an understanding that we do need to widen the ability or widen the scope of newspaper should be a tool of community understanding. Even in these challenging times, we can endeavor
see, real quick though,
this to him. I smiled bigly. His adrenaline scared me. And, and for the last 3 days, I've met so many people on the street who smile and are trying to be friendly. And they are friendly. And I don't know where we want from here because I know that there's two sides to everything. Help me.
You came here tonight, and I think conversations like these are a start in a move in that direction. Because we can all speak to one another, hear one another. That's the beginning. So I thank you for coming. Now 2000. That's fine.
And Netajit, I come from India.
Hello.
And I'm a visitor. For the last 1 month, I have been following this news of children case. I just want to give 1 or 2 comments or share our experience in India, because we have a caste system. 2% of the lowest being considered as almost. Our constitution was made in 1950. I want to share one point, the legal point. There's so many things to be shared, but just one point I would like to share. Even law in India, where offense is committed against the downtrodden is called as Dalit in India. So if an offense is committed against him by a person belonging to the higher category, the case, the burden of proof of proving the case is on normal jurisprudence principle changes in that case. This is the law, this is provided in the law. So in this case, it would have been that Zimmerman would have been required to prove that he is not guilty. In Indian case, in Indian law, in a similar situation, it would have been put this way. So normally it is not like that. Normally it is just as any prosecution has to prove the case. But here, in such kind of cases, the burden of proof reverses. And this is called as the Atrocity Act in India. To prevent the atrocities against one thing. And second point I would like to share is, I'm really amazed to see the gun laws that you have. Visiting US is shocked to see that a person can walk out with any number of guns. The guns and walk away with that without. As an observer, as an outsider, I can see there's a strong connection with this. I just want to ask whether you have thought about such. You can look to India, Indian experience. Not everything is very inspiring, but there are many inspiring instances of lawmaking, constitutional changes, and the assimilation of the downtrodden in the political system and the social system of India. I think it's time that you take something from India also on that.
I think that.
My name is Jordan Jacobs. I'm a soon-to-be senior at Berkeley High School, and I just want to say that I'm a part of a male and female to I was bound to go to college and graduate 4 years and to great things in life. And I see it every time we go somewhere. We have to dress. Like man in society, I see that high school is low, going to college, even if you go to college within the first semester you drop out, that rate is very high, and it's not a lot of high. The rate of young black men in general is negative. First impression already is bad just by walking down the street. This for the first time, they're like, okay, that's one high number of black men that and I can still be the same young black. So I'm just saying. To help our fellow brothers. We all got to be on the same mindset to just want to do the work, get an A and go on. So what can we do so that to go to the next level?
Trayvon, can you take that?
Yeah, I kind of had that same problem when I first started to change my behaviors and everything too. It's more as in like you can't change other people. Like most of the time, a lot of people I hung around with, when I did start to change, they wasn't with it. They didn't want to try to be the positive type or the helpful type or anything like that. I'm actually still friends with some. I kept talking to them, and like they didn't change up their whole behavior, but they changed up some. I mean, like a little bit at a time is the best thing you could do. Like nobody will change right away until they want to change themselves or until they see something wrong in themselves.
I'd like to suggest that, Washington School is right by Berkeley High, Lincoln, Malcolm X, I guess it's called. I'd encourage you and some of the other young scholars to do some tutoring with some of those youngsters, because we tend to wait until our young men get into difficulty before we help. So I'd just like to encourage you to hear some of the young gentlemen, select some of the middle schools or the elementary schools and do some tutorial with those youngsters. The other thing is, at the South Berkeley Library, for example, or the University Library, do some Saturday story times for the youngsters. That would be something that I think would be very helpful to you gentlemen as well as benefit the young.
But hi, good evening. My name is Diana Alonso. Is there a way in which this I was not. I read a newspaper way before I was an adult.
Well, the programs that we've created together do, I mean, generally target older. And I think the youngest person we had it was 17. But I know that there are many groups that the work that New American Media is doing, targeting youth, youth uprising, reaching into the high schools. I know for us, the reason that we generally target multi-ethnic and multi-generational folks, but with a certain age range, is largely because we are a writing platform first and foremost. So we need folks who can, to get the most out of the program, they need to be able to write so we can help them and allow us to help them bolster those skills and other skills. And I also think that we want to have generations talking to each other and different ethnicities talking to each other and seeing that those stories are actually correlated a lot more than we think. Our struggles, our concerns, our worries are much more aligned than we think, or than is often portrayed. So we haven't targeted really young. I'd say junior, senior, and high school is really the lowest that our programs have targeted thus far.
Or had a disturbing reaction, and then they unedited clip. And after he says, I'm going to have me done, the guy said, why are you going to do that? And he said, because I'm going to be the police. And so we made sure that the full story was aired, and hopefully putting the media on notice that you can't willfully distort a child's reality. I mean, that was more than just sort of, there are more mugshots of black men than there are of white men. That was giving, I mean, that was false fabrication. And so we try, through our watchdog role, to make sure that we're to help the media correct the young people see a different view. I think I got it right that you told me when you were growing up.
But the mentality from that.
We got that from the media. And so by widening the perception, we're widening the reality of young people's lives.
I will point out that Diana is a graduate of the inaugural class of Oakland Voices in West Oakland, and she's been working to create a program that does storytelling through using photography and using the eyes of youth. And so, you know, she's the best example of what can happen when you empower people from the community to tell their own stories. So, Diana.
I think it's important too to note that all over this country, organizations are using media literacy in schools as a way to teach history. You know, once upon a time we had a social studies, and you know we don't have that really anymore. We had all kind of art and media programs and all kind of stuff in schools that don't exist anymore. So I want to say that while I think that it's incredible and beautiful, and the leadership of the system is amazing, right? That's what we need. But also our schools have a responsibility, right? It's not up to you. It shouldn't be left up to you. Right, there's institutions that actually have a role to play in making sure we understand what we read, watch, and listen to.
Yes. We have time for a couple questions, and I want to ask the final question of the panel.
Be able to talk with my hands so they can do history.
Yes.
Good evening, and thank you all for your work. My name is Ratasha Hunt, and and this is directed to anyone. I'm very aware of the responsibility of the Black community and all communities of color to do our own restoration, our own soul restoration, and our own work in recovery, really, from being born into this country. I am personally involved in that. I'm also aware that it can't be done in isolation. And I very much agree with Brother Perkins, who one of the things you said is that you want to see white folks working within their own communities with other white folks. Ongoing. I look at the outrage that's happening and the big wake-up call, oh my gosh, but this has been happening for a really long time. I'm not going to rant. There is this underlying white fear and anxiety that has been keeping the narrative distorted for so long. There are programs on undoing privilege, undoing oppression, helping people to become conscious of their bias, to become aware of the things that they're carrying around with them that affect how they view Black life and the value of the lives of color. Now, what if there were some type of way to make that more systemic in order to change the system? What if within the world of media and journalism there was a large-scale kind of a re-education that needs to happen, that's only happening at a really small level right now in this country, of our white brothers and sisters, many of with great intention, struggling to be able to view us as equals. What if they could be supported with such a large-scale program on undoing privilege, undoing white privilege, and the internalized racism that's carried around. And the last thing I'm going to say is that atonement has never happened in this country. Like, we know this. We know that what's happening now has been going on for hundreds of years, and we've never cleared the air. We have never had a healing. And we can't just start with what's happening now. It goes back to the genocide of the Native Americans. It goes back to how this country was founded. It goes back to the fact that after emancipation happened, responsibility and accountability still hasn't occurred. And it's not about being punitive, but it is about truth-telling and the kind of like cleansing that has to happen so that we can now learn how to be together, how to truly integrate. So I'm interested in seeing how that can be supported at a larger level, along the level. There are people like Tim Wise who do this kind of work, who talk about this. Hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you. Oh, it does. Very much. Does anyone want to respond to that? Do you have questions, sir? Okay, come on. He's coming. Does anyone want to respond to that?
All I say is we live in an ahistoric country, so everybody done forgot about yesterday. You ever seen, what's his name, who has that show? He has red hair, he's a comedian. What's his name? Louis C.K. Louis C.K. And he has a joke. He says, you know, white people always want to add 100 years to like when slavery was ended. You're like, well, more than 100, you know, 5 million years ago. You know, it was just, it wasn't that long ago. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, when we think about history, when we think about the role history played, you know, I think that it's an important thing for us to consider. Just like South Africa couldn't move, and it's still moving, you know, but it couldn't move without truth and reconciliation. And none of the countries or places where there has been massive disruption in terms of hierarchy have been able to put a new political system, a new economic system in place without real change having happened. So I think that your idea is right on. I don't know what the news media can say, but I think we might want to look to other institutions of culture production like
We can report on it.
Well, and we can put things in, yeah, make sure that there's always that graph that says, you know, whatever, but put context in our report.
They did say that the economy was the most widely misunderstood story, partially because of the lack of context.
We have time for one more question. Do you have questions, sir? All right, 2 quick ones.
Okay, my name is Kevin Jenkins. I work in Alameda County Super. The president is currently working on an article on economic capital to affect social change. I know it's done in the civil rights movement. Do you think that it could be still effective? And what has to be done to get the masses to buy in?
Do we think that civil rights movement will still be effective?
No, using your economic capital to affect social change.
I do. I think we should be spending. All studies have shown that people of color spend a disproportionate amount of our income on disposable items, and I think we should be very careful about where we spend our money. So I try to do my best to spend my money in the Bay Area, in Oakland, in local cities. So and when you see, look what happened with Paula Deen, that was a use of economic and other social media. I do think that we always need to update our strategies, but I think companies want money. Another example, a lot of people during the election made it clear where the Koch brothers, one of the Koch brothers products, and urging people not to economically support individuals who are trying to cut back our rights. I mean, why on earth would I buy Northern Soldier? Know that that money is going to be put into ALEC, which is going to try to put more stage around laws. So yes, I think that I
also agree. I think that we don't keep our money in our community. If I go to Chinatown keeps its money in its community and no one says anything about it. Bishop Bob Jackson is talking about creating Africa Town. So when people have a hard time with thinking about Africa Town, we're having a hard time thinking about Chinatown or like Koreatown. And so I think that we need to create institutions. One of the things that we tend to do is beg other people for jobs as opposed to make our own jobs. So people fund FBI, friends, brothers, and other interested people. And so I think that we need to create an FBI within our community so the dollar stays in our community. And unfortunately, we have a history of having our hands out because we've received welfare because of the situation we've been put in this country by the dominant population. And we have to get out of always begging and creating our own. And I want to say something about the media. He or she who controls the media controls the mind. I think we need to support our local African newspaper. I use the word African newspapers, whether it's the Post or there's another paper on the peninsula. Sun Report. We need to support those newspapers, and we need to put our story in those newspapers because they're more than likely to run our stories in a positive way than we are some of the other newspapers. Some of the other newspapers.
Right, you get the last word, sir.
All right, good evening, fellow human beings. My name is Charles Perkins. My question or concern is, we live in a very fast-paced society where sometimes we aren't able to digest our information. So often we rely on sound bites and headlines. So my question is, how do you address the sensationalized, I guess in this time, race-baiting headlines that typically grab people's attention, whether or not if it's sincere or whether or not it has a certain motive or agenda behind it?
So, if I may, this is something, Mr. Perkins, that I've been thinking a lot about. I was talking to some colleagues, feeling as though, because one of the challenges we have, for instance, in our organization, we have an outstanding breaking news team, and they go get up on the story of the day and do an excellent job of reporting it. The problem is oftentimes that story is about crime. And so you could argue that we've almost become too good at reporting stories about crime. And they're out there trying to do the best that they can and do a good job at it. However, the question is that where we should be putting our resources? So in my view, and many of my colleagues are also thinking about, well, now, how do we rethink the role that we play in our journalistic life, because in many ways, the business is changing dramatically, and what we could once cover, we cannot cover anymore, and yet we are still, in many ways, certainly legacy media, trying to hold on to what it is that we once were. Journalists loathe to not cover something, so, you cover the news, something breaks, you cover it. But at the same time, at what cost? If what you're covering, there's an overemphasis on crime and a lack of emphasis on context. And so, but it is something that we are discussing.
So in that case, how integrity?
What's that?
How integrity of journalism? Because now it's an issue of integrity, which is obviously an issue.
Well, I wouldn't say there's a lack of integrity. I mean, it's not as though the information that's necessarily being reported is factually incorrect. The question is it providing an accurate portrayal of the community? Is it providing the full context of what the community challenges are? And is it focusing on what is actually really important, right? I think we're running around chasing ambulances too much. I do believe that. But it's a real challenge to change. The news media, in many ways, news organizations like Mayor News Group are like a big tanker going down the ocean. And we know that we need to change, but you've got the daily responsibilities of the news organization to make that shift. I don't want to take up too much time because I want everyone to answer the final question, but I just want you to know that it is something that those of us in news organizations are thinking about as we move forward. I want to ask you guys a quick question so that we can get out of here as close to on time as possible. And this is directed to all of you. Last year, we had a panel shortly after Trayvon was slain. And many called it the killing of Trayvon Martin a seminal moment. Now that Zimmerman has been acquitted of criminal charges and could perhaps in some way, we shouldn't waste our time with civil and civil rights action by the Justice Department. But in your estimation, what does this moment mean? What does this moment represent for you in relation to your area of expertise concern?
Well, since my organization actually works with youth the same age as Trayvon Martin, it's a worry. Just because we work with the same youth, the same age, same description, and we have to worry about them. Like my supervisor went to funerals for the youth that we went to, and it's hard. Like we put in our time and effort with these youth to make a difference in their lives, to change their lives and have a big impact. And to watch that go to waste over stupid decisions over somebody else, it's just hard in the heart. I mean, was it more to the question you asked?
No, not that. What does this moment, what does it mean?
I don't try to say this to try to be sound hateful or cold-hearted, but the truth be said, in me, it's a moment in the past. I find I can look backwards at it because that was just slowing me down moving forward. And that's something I try to tell the people I work with and the people that I know personally. Like, once something happens, there's not too much you can do on it, but keep moving forward and just not think of it anymore.
I started this panel, my hands were shaking. I was like, before I got it, I was like, I'm not going. I'm not going. I was like, I'm not going. Because I was, it wasn't so much that it was the fact that there were all these people standing. And they assumed, by looking at the situation, that these white men were helping. They were being helpful. And that in fact, I must have done something. This is something I read about. But the level of intervention, let me say it differently. The fact that the story had already been told, right? The story was already, the mental map, the model had already been constructed before the thing ever happened. So the outcome, the consequence, was already foretold. It was cool. Man has a fine, go underground. It doesn't matter. It's fine. And I think that what occurs to me is this. The last commenter said, what integrity means in the dictionary says wholeness. Actually necessarily means right. It means wholeness. It means something that is live in a country that is not whole. It is broken. And our legal system is in fact broken. Our legal system is broken. Our economic system is broken. Our educational system is broken. We need something that is greater than spiritual healing. We need a structural healing. We need some actual political change to take place that does not depend on whether you like me, not depend on whether we're friends. And because democracy is not about us having a rainbow, and walking down the street holding hands and flowers and butterflies. It's about people being able to participate where they live. And that doesn't matter if you're a citizen, doesn't matter what your race is, doesn't matter what your ability is here. And therefore you have the right to participate in the decisions that affect your life. That is fractured. That fundamental idea is fractured. And this moment is an opportunity for us to become whole again. And just like it took thousands of years fact, if you go back to feudalism, which is what point is that it's going to take time, but we can start now. And I want to encourage you all to think about this, the idea of Black Lives Matter. And I want to say this: I did not come up with that. A woman, Elisa Barza, from People Organized to Win Employment Rights in San Francisco, as well as other people, Black Immigration Alliance, and other that meme, and it's a powerful meme in a nation that devalues.
Thank you.
So the first thought came to my mind was opportunity. Our ancestors called us here today. Let me back up. We are spiritual beings in a human body trying to figure out how to be human. And our ancestors called us here today to do something. Everyone did not show up. For those of you showed up, our ancestors brought us here. Our ancestors are crying for us to do something to make a difference. And I'm not asking you to do anything way out. I'm asking you to do something right next door to your house. Do something at your church. Do something at your school. So I want, when it's all said and done, Lord said it was done. And I want that not to be true. That sister made a connection there. So something has already happened. I want to see a lot more connection. I want to see us committed to make connections to people right around us here in Oakland. Your neighbor, your friend. And if you don't go, if you leave this meeting and not say something to somebody, your ancestors are going to be angry with you. So you got to take this message out. You got to tell at least 2 more people. And then you got to decide what the 3 of you as a tribe are going to do. You got to do something. Opportunity.
So how many of you are on Twitter? Okay, so the first thing is I'd like to see the rest of you get on Twitter and start using the social media to communicate with each other and communicate with the media and to keep raising the narratives that are accurate about our community. I try to tell people to steer away from words like positive or negative when talking about media portrayal, because it's not about positive or negative, it's about accurate and inaccurate. And this room looks like the Oakland I moved to 20 years ago, which may not be the Oakland I'm living in now, but it's a narrative that needs to be told, and it needs to be told by each of us in this room. So my hope is that we use this opportunity to amplify the voices. And just to end on a somewhat positive note, I was trying to call it up on my Facebook page, but now it won't cooperate. The Daily News, the New York Daily News, which is a tabloid newspaper that in New York, not necessarily the most progressive newspaper in the world. On Monday, its front page was a picture of an empty hoodie with a list of names, including Emmett Till and Trayvon Martin, with the question, when will it end? My hope is that through Twitter and through engaging with the media, you can help create that kind of narrative in your local newspaper. And I'm sure talking with Pam, met her, you met Martin. Reach out to the media, work with the media, and use social media to change the narrative. And what about the Daily News?
Not the Post.
I said the Daily News. Yeah. Do you have the picture? I mean, it was a really powerful. I'm pretty sure. It just won't come up.
And I think that to piggyback on that, the Tribune is offering classes on how to tweet, how to blog, how to use Facebook. We just rolled out a new mobile media lab, which is actually right outside, which is intended to be taken around to different communities to teach digital storytelling skills. So there is an effort afoot by the media in your community to try and connect. There are people who care. There are caring journalists here today. Pamela Turntine took the time out of reporting, running a newspaper today to come here, to be here to listen to this. We're covering it. We have a Brittany Mejia here is a reporter who's writing a story about this. We've got Janice Marr back there from the East County Times as part of bank who's writing feverishly. this is something that matters to the members of the community, the journalistic community in this area. So, not to lose heart, I want to thank our panel. Please give them a round of applause. I want to thank the Baylor Institute, the Tribune, the California Endowment, and all of you for taking the time out of your busy lives to share your thoughts and perspectives with us today. Good night. And